Hello everyone and welcome back to a Plane Time special segment on the P-40. And we do have what I would consider a P-40 expert, and we do know what an expert is. An expert is a former drip under pressure. Okay, you can laugh, you can stop laughing now, but we're going to go back with Thom Richard. Thom, welcome back again and share with us some history about the P-40.
Ja, P-40 har väldigt mycket historia, väldigt trevligt flygplan att flyga faktiskt. Det är min favorit. Om du har ett tillfälle att flyga en P-40 tycker du ska göra det.
Excellent. Now Thom, can you give that to us in English? Because how many of our Swedish-speaking guests probably heard that?
Oh, this is not a Swedish show.
No, this is an English-American show.
Well, the aircraft you have represented as a model here in front of me is an E model, Illusion paint scheme P-40. They built 13,738 P-40s in World War II. Our aircraft is an N model. It's got the classic shark's mouth paint job, which is not authentic for the aircraft at the time. It was really just a plain Odie drab paint scheme at the time. But of course, we all know the Flying Tiger story, and the shark's mouth is, I think, required on this iconic aircraft.
Very iconic.
So that's why we painted it that way. American Dream is something I named it after my story coming to the United States. That is not what it was called in World War II. In World War II, it was called 5x5, as in loud and clear. That's what the mechanic named the aircraft. The pilot actually had a different name for it, Pumpkins, for his lady friend. The aircraft was built in 1942, and it came off the production line in the spring of '43. It was test flown in Buffalo, out of the parking lot at the Curtiss Aircraft Company, and then immediately flown to the West Coast, put on a boat, and shipped to New Guinea. And that's where it spent its entire career. So it got there in the summer of 1943. And it was flown by a couple of different pilots, but the one that flew it on the most famous day in its history was on September 13th, 1943, was Joel Thorvaldsen. Joel got into a massive dogfight that day, and he ended up shooting down a Zero. He shot down a Betty bomber, and he had a second probable Zero. So this aircraft, very unusual, has 2 confirmed kills. It has actual pedigree. And as far as I know, it's the only aircraft in the world today that a member of the public can go fly that has confirmed kills. After he achieved those victories, he took a round to the engine. He didn't know if it was air or ground fire. Actually, he didn't know that he'd taken a round, but he lost control of the propeller and eventually lost the engine. So he was forced to do a dead stick landing into a field next to a river in the middle of the jungle of New Guinea. He got away with it relatively unscathed. He got a scratch on his arm. Wasn't too bad, but he got out of the cockpit, and he actually fired off his signal gun on the radio so that would burn up and not end up in enemy hands, because they were Japanese down there. So he had brought with him a jungle knife, about this length. It wasn't quite a machete. It wasn't a small pocket knife. It was somewhere in between. And he started hacking his way out of the jungle. He tried to make it home to camp. And he realized it was much too tight of vegetation. It wasn't going to work. So he ended up going back to the wreckage. And they were searching for him, and they spotted him, and they saw him. And one of his buddies actually threw a raft down to him and some provisions. So he went to the nearby river, and he floated downstream for 5 days, evading enemy capture, because they were after him. They knew he had downed several airplanes, so he was a prized target. They did not capture him. He was picked up by the Australians, which was tremendous luck on his part. And there are some very famous pictures, that are even at the Smithsonian today, of him with his raft of the day he was recovered. It's a fantastic story. So he survived the war, continued flying. He ended up as a full bird colonel in Vietnam. He spent his entire career in the U.S. Air Force. And he didn't pass away until 2014.
So you had the opportunity to meet this
I
gentleman.
did not. 2014 is when I heard about the aircraft the first time.
Okay.
I didn't acquire it until 2018. But I am in contact with his son. And his son has sent me all kinds of documents about this, and pictures and telegrams. For example, the one where he was found missing and sent to his wife at home, that you know he was presumed missing in action or killed in action. and so on. The son was going to meet us at Oshkosh in 2019. Or I'm sorry, 2020. Well, Oshkosh didn't happen. And the idea was he was going to present us with the jungle knife. He still has it.
Oh.
And we're going to permanently mount it in the aircraft and leave it with the aircraft. When Joel found out that the aircraft had been discovered in the 90s and recovered for restoration, he was asking about bullet holes in the cowling, because he received the injury to his arm, but he never received a Purple Heart because it wasn't proven that it was to enemy action. So they thought it was a mechanical. That's how it was written up, but he swore up and down that he'd taken fire. So they confirmed that indeed there was a round lodged in the engine that had caused the problem. So he received the Purple Heart in the late 90s. It's pretty fascinating.
That is.
The aircraft flew for the first time again after restoration in 2009. So it was a 10-plus year, multi-million-dollar restoration. And then flew down in Australia for a few years before it was re-imported to the U.S. And it's been here ever since. So we're going to take it to Oshkosh again this year. I'll be performing in the show with it, 3 days, I've been told. And hopefully the Thorvald descendants, the entire family, will finally be there to see the airplane in person for the first time. And the tentative plan was to do the Warbirds in review so everybody can see it happen.
Will there be any video footage of the family?
I would hope so.
On the airplane?
Yeah, I would hope so.
Have you arranged that?
It's in the works with the Florida Aviation Network.
I understand that we might be able to make that happen. But well, that's great, Thom. And there's so much more about the P-40 that if you're really curious, I read the internet last week. I finished the internet, but I did find a good segment on there about the P-40.
Very good. There should be a good bit there.
There's a lot. Thom, again, thanks for the quick brief on that, and thanks for spending your time with us today, and I look forward to seeing you perform in this machine.
My pleasure all the way.
And thanks again for joining us here on the set of the Florida Aviation Network. And this is a wrap. Ben Coleman, we'll see you next show.